All right, welcome to Wednesday Morning Live. I've got my coffee that Pastor Kevin picks up for me every Tuesday. He got me some. He got me some on Sunday this week, Monday this week, and Tuesday this week. So thanks Panera. We'll count that as a promotion.
I'm going on vacation, leaving them, so gotta really build them up before I leave.
I never finished one of these, and I brought a cup home last night. My wife's like, "You're still drinking that?" I was like, "I can't drink 18 ounces of coffee in 8 hours. I just nurse the thing all day, and just whatever's left is left." But today's been one of those days. Wait, it's 6 a.m. when they're watching this.
Yes.
Today's not one of those days. This morning, it's still
early.
hot.
Yes.
Woo!
The breakfast was delicious.
Hey, don't break the fourth wall. This is 6 a.m. That's not the sun setting behind us. That's the sun rising.
Yeah.
We flipped
coming over top of the building.
We flipped the building while you guys were asleep last night. That's the south side. I don't know anymore.
We're actually doing a selfie, and it flipped everything around on you. We're in the other.
Yeah, that's right. This is a phone thing. Yeah, no, it's 100% true.
We're definitely getting off topic quick.
Because today's topic is a little difficult, and it's a little different because the truth of the matter is it's not a one-size-fits-all. Mm-hmm. We're going to be wrestling with this question of how do I know if I'm called, or what does it mean to be called? What is calling? So if you're a Christian, you realize that, all right, I got saved. Now I'm growing in my walk with the Lord. And people start talking about, am I called? So somebody says, well, I've been called to be a missionary, and I'm moving to China, Africa, France, South America, or just across the country to plant a church.
Caleb and Lindsay, who we support.
Yeah, our friends over all the way on the other side of the world, in China, like good people. And it was like 4 years ago, they were like, we feel called to this. And so they uprooted their lives and just, packed everything they had in a couple of suitcases. So how do you get to the point where you feel that kind of a calling? Or what if you're saying, well, I'm a Christian, but I don't feel called? Like, what does that mean? And so what Kevin and I are going to do is share with you how Kevin's calling is different than my calling, in that I did have a specific moment where I felt like the Lord was calling me to something specifically.
Yeah.
Kevin.
Mine is more of a living and seeing where God leads and opening doors and just kind of walking through each time.
So the truth of the matter is it's kind of a both and. So I've got some friends who, like me, when they were a teenager or 20-something or late in life, they really felt like God put a specific calling on their life to do something, to move somewhere, to pursue something. And then there's a lot of times you don't have that calling. So yeah, I did feel a call to ministry when I was a teenager, but I did not have this. There was never a moment when I was like walking around Portsmouth or driving and God parted the skies and was like, this is the location.
Big spotlight on the ground.
Start the church. Or like I didn't run into some of our launch team members and God put a glow on their face like that's right. No, like I did have a specific call when I was a teenager, but then the rest of my life has been more like Kevin's calling, like, well, this could work.
Right.
God may have opened a door here, and that's what we really want to talk to you about is what does that feel like? What is it based on? And then what we really want to make clear is calling is more than just missions, church planting, pastoring, or ministry. Mm-hmm. We're all called, period. Mm-hmm. So we're going to talk, first of all, about some generic things. Like every Christian is called to, so Kevin and I are going to like ping pong. So let's just spitball. Like every Christian is called to what, Kev?
It's faithfulness. It's
all right,
commitment.
Start there.
Yeah,
we're called to be faithful, to be committed.
A lot of times we see people, we'll have individuals talk to us and ask us, hey, what does it look like for me to get involved in ministry? And we're like, well, first off, you need to be faithful to your family.
Yeah, like start basically. If you're not attending church, like that's your next step. We're all called to serve in our gifting and ability. Yeah. And that could be in kids ministry, that could be in the band, that could be on outreach, that could be serving your neighbor.
We're called to love.
Yep, absolutely. Jesus said that over and over and over.
Regardless.
Love our neighbor, love our enemy.
Love your neighbor.
We're all called to not just follow Jesus, but growth. Like we want to grow closer to him. Sanctification, the process of becoming more like Christ, requires us to like not just be a Christian, but to seek the things that are above. Seek first the kingdom of God.
Yeah, produce fruit.
Bible
says you shall know them by their fruit.
Absolutely.
Man, that's a huge part.
So we're all called to bear the fruit of the Spirit. Like I'm called not only to love, but to joy, to peace, to faithfulness, to patience, to what's the tough one? Self-control. So here's the deal. A lot of us get off track because we're like, well, God never called me to be a missionary. Or I would never want God to call me into ministry. Or I want God to give me a specific, and here's where we really get hung up. Well, I don't know what God wants me to do. Well, yeah, you do, actually. You've got 66 books, thousands of chapters of scripture where God has given you the generics. The specifics come when we follow the generics. So here's one of the things that I found. God called me when I was a teenager. He made clear to me, like, this is the path for your life. He didn't tell me where. He didn't tell me how. But he did tell me what. He said, you're going to be a preacher. He didn't even say pastor. Like, it was very clear I was going to preach, right? But I had no idea where, no idea how. But God moved in my life when there was a season as a teenager where I started doing the general. Like, God, I can't control tomorrow, but I'm going to read the Bible. I'm going to spend time in prayer. I'm going to do my best to combat sin and, like, really live an honest life, a holy life, the best I can. I'm imperfect, you know. And suddenly when you start doing the general will of God, he reveals to you his specific will, or at least he opens doors.
Right.
And so when I answered the call, the guy that prayed with me, his name was Mark as well. He said, Mark, I can't tell you if God is actually calling you or not. You might be led astray by your own heart right now. Who knows? But I'm going to tell you to pray what I prayed. God, if this is what you want me to do, I'm going to walk through open doors until you close them. Yeah. So most Christians never have that huge mountaintop, like God laid it out. And look, some Christians have, and I'm grateful for those Christians.
Yeah, it just makes it more evident in your life, like, I know what I'm supposed to be doing.
But most of us don't live like that. Most of us are still like, look, our church is almost 6 years old, and I regularly wake up and think, man, well, should we have started the church in this part of Portsmouth? Maybe we should have gone to a different part of.
Yeah.
Would Suffolk have been better? Yeah. Wait, maybe Virginia
maybe the
Beach,
coming area, maybe where there's families.
Maybe California. Yeah. Like you read the reports of the fastest growing cities where things are going well, and you're like, what?
Did I may surprise you, but Portsmouth's not it.
Yeah,
we didn't make the list this year.
We're landlocked. They're not building it. Like we've run out of room. Like there's 100 reasons not to start a church here, if you're honest, right? But that's part of.
You said something very, very true, and I'm celebrating a big milestone in my life this year.
18th wedding anniversary.
Yes,
Congratulations!
18th wedding anniversary. Nailed it 2 days ago.
That's not the thing you're talking about.
It's the open doors you've said several times. It's the open door, and when we first started in moving to where God would have us, we felt called. It wasn't to a church ministry. It wasn't to full-time ministry where we left jobs. We moved with a job. We found jobs and we helped out. But as we look back now, we see that it was all open doors. It's God opening doors. And so I tell everyone I counsel, follow the open doors. Because God is going to close those doors. If you're sitting there forcing the door open, you'll know it.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
That's where you have to be comfortable enough to say, all right, it's not at this time. But there's a lot of times we just avoid open doors because it's not fun or convenient to us.
Yeah.
We'll bypass it and look for the next available opportunity.
And I like what you said about closed doors, because I know some people who they've had some doors close, and that almost really directed them too. For instance, I know a gentleman who he's in ministry and he was trying to get out of ministry, and literally every application he put in, he couldn't get hired. I don't know if you guys are aware in 2021, but most places are willing to hire just about anybody. Yeah. And this guy had a good resume, and he's like, okay, God, really closing some doors that used to be open to me. Mm-hmm. So maybe I don't need to maybe I need to refocus on the door that's open in front of me instead of trying to push some doors open. On the flip side, I know some people who've tried to push their way into ministry. God must be calling me. And when your Christian friends around you, and really this is where pastors, youth pastors, mentors, small group leaders, when somebody comes alongside you and says, I've known you a long time, I don't know about this calling. They're speaking truth into you that you probably need to hear. Yeah. They know your gifting, they know your capabilities, or they know that you're just not even faithful. That yeah, that's right. You started 1,000 projects, you've turned over 1 million new leaves, and all you're going to do is hurt yourself and possibly others in ministry when you begin doing that in the church or on the mission field.
And I think my ministry, you said you had the calling, but mine was very, very different. I still don't feel like I'm called to pastor or preach even. That's not my calling. But I feel like there's a need, and God gave me an ability. And there was a pastor who preached when I was younger, and I've heard it several times since, but God's not looking for the gifted, he's looking for the willing. And if you're willing, God can use all of our inadequacies to move you forward in some form of ministry. But mine started with, I was dating my wife, but I was doing landscaping and maintenance at a church. And then I got on with FedEx with benefits and thought, man, this is my career.
Yeah, who would quit FedEx with the benefits they have?
Absolutely.
What an idiot
What
you are.
Crazy people
Who would do such a
that
thing?
and go onto the marketplace trying to find health care.
What a dope.
Yeah, just a
If
few
you
more
know
weeks
anybody,
left at FedEx.
if you know anybody doing that right now, you say, what's wrong with you?
We should speak truth into some people's lives around here. But I, in my mind, and even when I got married, my wife, like, we were very settled. Like, this is what we're going to do. Kevin's going to have a career in FedEx. I'd be 20 years in next year, which is hard to think, and be close to retirement and all that.
You'd still be under the old pension plan, bro.
But it's crazy because as life went on, we moved to Indiana. I transferred with FedEx, and we didn't get the job that we wanted. I was guaranteed a very small number of hours, and it was tight. We lived tight, and like, God, what are you doing? What are you doing? And what we realized, 4 years after being there, we stepped into youth ministry. But I can honestly say, looking back, I've learned a lot. God has grown me and my family more than I can explain. But if I would have stayed in FedEx, if God would have had me in FedEx, I would have been just as happy and content, I believe, as being outside, because I realized I came to terms about 5 years in that FedEx was my ministry.
Yeah.
Like, that was what I was called to do. That was what my gifting was. I could drive a truck. I know everybody can drive a truck, but I could drive a truck and I could be friendly to customers. But a lot of times we're so eager to find where can I serve, where can I be big, where can I do big things for Christ, that we miss the opportunity to do big things for Christ where we are.
And big things always look bigger on the other side, like the grass is greener. Kevin's dad used to always say it like this, and it's kind of what you just said about the willing. Kevin's dad would always say, the greatest ability you have for God is dependability. God doesn't need your gift of speech, your gift of wisdom. God wants to use you if you show up. That's 99% of the time. If people will just show up, God will use them in people's lives to make a difference, whether it's at FedEx or in ministry. And that's the same old story that people they overlook. They're like, well, and that's why a lot of people, this isn't even Christian advice, this is secular advice. You have no idea often. I know there's jobs you need to get out of, or issues there, but a lot of times if you quit your job every 2 to 3 years, you're never going to move up like you could have. You're never going to have the sustainability or even the impact at that place, in that community. There's something to longevity.
It may be slower growth in the pay raise. Because you're jumping from this one to the next. But if you had stayed here 10 years instead of 3 years,
right,
and watched that pay raise instead of jumping from $10,000 raise here, $10,000 to continual
exponential growth.
Right.
Yeah.
But anyway.
But that's the thing about calling, right? Yeah. When we hear the word calling, there's something a lot of us, there's something inside of us that says, well, God's going to call me to better and bigger. And sometimes God calls us to plant a seed and to sow and to work the soil and to just be faithful where we are.
And to be honest, that's one of the hardest things for me, to watch something that I have toiled in or had a part of, and then all of a sudden it takes off and I have no part of it anymore. It's like, but I was there, but I was a part, and that's what Paul says. Some come,
some plant the seed, some give the water, and God gives the increase.
Right.
And that's part of calling too, is knowing none of us are called to save the world. Like, Jesus died on the cross. We're good. But Kevin has his role. I have my role. And I like what Kevin said too about I wasn't called to preach. My calling's really, really narrow. Like, most of the things I do at our church are not preaching. It's like 2 hours a week. You know what I'm saying? Plus study, maybe 6, 7, 8 hours max, right? Everything else, I haven't been called to this. I have no idea if I'm doing this right.
Just so you know, when I preach, it's 20, 25 hours trying to get ready for it.
We're just trying to
a little bit different.
We're just trying to be efficient. I'm just quicker, so we make me do it because I can get it done. Like, it's all about efficiency around here. But no, like, half the things I do aren't preaching. So yeah, I have some days where I don't really enjoy pastoral ministry or meetings or decisions or whatever. And that's part of calling too, is knowing not everything feels like, every missionary you talk to is going to tell you there's a lot of days they're not ministering the way they thought they'd be ministering. Some days they're giving people what they need. They're providing water, they're offering surgery, or they're ministering to people spiritually. But a lot of days it's like, they're out there collecting water and helping people with, like, something fell in the ditch. It's just everyday struggle stuff.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
No, I think if you're sitting here watching this and you're like, man, I just really feel like God's doing a call in my life. Philippians 2:13 comes to mind, and it says, "For God is working in you, giving you the desire and the power to do what pleases Him." There's a lot of times that we will avoid that voice. We will avoid that God working in us, because we see that it's gonna bring work. It's gonna bring turmoil. It's gonna bring not the pay increases that we want to see because we're focusing on
I'm not
God.
just dedicated to my work now. I've got God's calling on my life, and that's going to require input, effort, energy.
And I think being as a pastor now, the thing that I see most is we don't set aside our Sabbath or Sunday as a true day of coming together, resting, and worshiping God, but rather we say, well, it's a day of rest, and so I'm going to text my team leader and say I can't be there today because I need to rest. What you do during the week is not what it should not affect your ministry at any point. But too often we make our lives so busy that we can't even hear God calling us.
We overcommit.
Yeah, and we make it so loud around us that when Sunday comes, we're like, well, I'm just exhausted, and they'll understand. But man, how are we hurting the body of Christ when we make ourselves so busy Monday through Saturday that we can't come in on Sunday? And I know that's a whole other thing, but that comes back to ministry. That comes back to, if you can't be committed to being a part of the body of believers,
right,
on a very, very regular basis, not once a month,
how are you going to hear the calling?
Yeah.
And that's where I think a lot of Christians are like, well, I've never heard this calling. My first question would be, are you regularly engaged with church? Are you regularly in the scriptures? Because the truth is, the scriptures call us all the time. Pastor Kevin read from Philippians. I'm going to read you from 1 Peter 4. Each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. So I'm just going to tell you, whether or not you feel called, you are called. Yeah. And a lot of times we don't hear it because we're not near the phone. We're not in the Word, we're not spending time in prayer, and we're not at church. So you might not feel called, but here's what I'm getting at. When you're in the body and you feel that calling, I always tell people, don't rush and sprint to, God must be calling me to uproot and move. He might, but He's probably calling you to serve regularly, make a difference in people's lives, get involved in your group, maybe even lead a group. And I always tell people, if you want to know if you are cut out for any kind of calling, lead a small group. Because there's going to be people, there's going to be drama, there's going to be love, there's going to be relationship, there's going to be community, but there's also going to be struggle. And what Kevin was talking about earlier about the Sabbath thing is like, too many of us as Christians, we feel this calling, and so we embrace it. And what we do is we actually run so far ahead of God that we don't have room for Sabbath, because I am working, and I'm working this other stuff, and then I have kids, and then I've got this, but I want to be the best small group leader ever. And we try our best to be the best at everything, and we don't realize we can do anything we want, we can't do everything we want. And so we have to actually prioritize. Well, if I feel like God's calling me to this, I'm going to be at church. I'm going to make sure that my stuff gets done at home, but I can't have 15 hobbies. And this is probably the hardest lesson I've had to learn for the last 10 years. I cannot be involved in basketball, surfing, skateboarding, working. I love yard work. I've had to say, not all those can fit in my life. Occasionally I can play basketball, but not as often. Surfing, I mean, it's an hour commitment to get to the beach. So you have to whittle it down and say, if I'm going to get done everything I need to and still pursue God's calling on my life, I can redeem some of those. I can be evangelistic in my surfing. I can be evangelistic in my basketball playing at the Y. Anyways, that's another story for
that brings up a good point. Is where are you being evangelistic?
We're called to that.
I've shared this story 20 times since our church has launched, but when I was at FedEx, I invited my manager to come to church. He came to church one Sunday, and dude, I was pumped. I introduced him to everybody, and I mean everybody. And the next morning, went into work early in the morning. We had our meeting, and my manager came in, and he's like, "Guys, I got to go to church with Kevin yesterday, and man, I have never seen him as excited as I saw him at church yesterday when I showed up." And I literally was like, "Man, that's awesome. That's great." And as I was driving the truck down the road, it was literally like God smacked me upside the head, like, "You bonehead."
Yeah.
why aren't you so excited about being at work? Because that's your ministry. And like, that was such an eye-opening experience for me that I'm not known for my excitement at work. I'm known for my excitement as long as you come into my environment.
We have Christian joy on Sunday. We don't take it to work with us on Tuesday. And we wonder why our friends don't want to come to church
And we
when
always
we invite them.
like, well, you don't understand my workplace. Was it worse than being sacrificed on the cross?
And that's the other thing. However bad your workplace is, as Christians, we should be thermostats. When we walk into rooms, we should bring the level of spirituality. We should bring the level of joy. I know we can't affect everything,
right,
but we should be a salt, a light. And when light walks into a room,
and it's hard.
It is.
It is so hard. Like, I walk into places that it just, the joy is sucked out of you as soon as you walk in.
You can
But man,
sense it.
keeping that smile on your face and trying to be encouraging and uplifting, that's ministry.
Yep.
Ministry, we are all called to ministry.
And that's where we really want to get to is when we talk about calling, people are like, well, God hasn't called me. Well, in a way he has. And here's what I mean. We are all called to be part of the body, and we're all called to serve. And so you may not have a specific calling, a ministry calling, but you are called as a Christian to be salt and light, to be sharing the gospel, spreading the good news, to be joy-filled, walking into rooms, creating a spiritual thermostat. Mm-hmm. And so my question is not, are you called? My question is, are you responding to the call you already have? Because you are called.
Yes.
You like, when I get up on Sunday and I'm like, we should be passing out invite cards, that's not me like coming up with some scam to get you to do something.
Right.
When I tell you,
let's grow our church.
Right. When I tell you that you need to know the prayer, the sinner's prayer to share with somebody, that's not me saying, well, I hope you have this tool in your tool bag. We're called to this. Mm-hmm. I am and you are. Like, we're all called to this, and we all fall short. Don't get me wrong. We can all throw those excuses out. But our challenge is really, if you are called, you should be doing this.
Absolutely.
And even if you don't feel a calling, you're still called in the most base level to follow Jesus, to make disciples, to share the good news. And so here's what I would really say, and then I'm going to turn it over to Kevin a little bit. There is great joy in pursuing the calling, whether general or specific, that God has placed on your life. Because when you do that, God provides. When you share the gospel with somebody, I've seen this happen over and over with me personally, and I've had Christians tell me, it's like, I never would have thought of this answer, but everything they'd say, God, not that you were arguing with them, but like God gave you wisdom in that moment. The Holy Spirit like shared with you what you needed to say to them. And I sounded smarter afterward than I ever would have thought, because I was doing when God calls us to do something, he provides a way for us to do it. Yep. He gives us the support we need. Kevin was talking about jobs and getting cut hours. And I've told y'all before, when I quit I quit the job at the airport and took just FedEx as my part-time job. And I was letting go of a lot of income and really trusting the Lord. That very next week, I got a raise at the other job. Like, God provides for us when we pursue our calling. Yeah. Not always apples to apples, dollars for dollars, but he has a way of reminding us, I've got you. If you're pursuing what I've called you to do, he will make time, he will make energy, he will make up the difference. And the reason a lot of us are in trouble is because we think we need to do it in our own power, when we could depend on God and say, God, I'm going to do it, and watch as he provides. So,
you're talking, and I have names running through my mind of people that I've gotten to pray for and pray with to accept Christ.
Yeah.
And man, all of them are so dear and precious, and it excites me when somebody gives their life to Christ, and there's nothing like it. That's what we're called to do.
Yeah.
But I remember telling somebody early on in what I'm going to call my ministry, full-time ministry, when I became a youth pastor, it's more work for me as a pastor to interact with people than it was whenever I was in the workplace every day, because I was surrounded by unbelievers. And so now a lot of my time is spent on encouraging and leading and helping to disciple those believers who are dealing with individuals every day. And I have side jobs that I get to interact with people, but I don't have that every day, Monday through Friday, going into work. But I remember there was a guy that I met at lunch every single day of the week except for Thursday, because I played ball on Thursday during my lunch break. And we would sit at McDonald's and we would just talk. And about a week before I left FedEx for the final time, he had started attending church, a different church, not the church that I attended. But I walked up to the back of his truck to say good morning, and he had tears coming down his eyes, and he said, Kevin, my leader told me I needed to tell somebody that I accepted Christ yesterday at church. And man, that was like Like, I jumped up in the back of the truck, hugged them, and I was so excited. But I missed those opportunities a lot of times. The coworker, that peer, and our work environment wasn't perfect. We had managers, we had bosses who didn't understand the process of delivering and going through the sort. And it was hectic. But there was a day where I was just burdened and challenged that if I'm going to be the negative spirit at work, I'm never going to attract anyone.
Yeah.
Because I am acting just like a non-believer at work. So my ministry is in vain.
Right.
And God's just dealt with my heart on so many levels and so many times.
Yeah.
And man, those are the times that you look at and you say, that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about, being able to lead that person.
Yeah, and it's funny because you weren't at the church when he did it, so
right.
you plant the seed, somebody else waters, somebody else gets the increase. But honestly, that's part of the whole thing. When we pursue our calling, we don't always know how it's going to work out. Just simply like when you're in line and God, man, puts a real burden on your heart to share with someone, to invite someone to church, to witness to them about what Jesus has done in your life. You never know how that will be received. You never know what will take place. But there's story after story in our church of people, man, who reluctantly invited their friend. And their friend comes to church, keeps coming, and gets saved. Usually people attend our church for 4 or 5 weeks before they get saved. And so you can like see the Lord working on them. And we've got a couple of people right now, they're at like week 3 and week 4. And you're just like, man, these people are about to get saved. And you know the friend that brought them. You know who invited them, the neighbor that, man, said, you should come to church sometime. And so ministry isn't this thing where I'm called to it. It's a lifestyle, right? We're all called to live this way and to pursue this. So my challenge to you as we kind of wrap this up would be, you are called.
Yes.
So take your next step. If you're saying, well, Pastor Mark, I don't really, I'm not really where I need to be. Well, God is calling you into a deeper relationship with him. Are you going to answer the phone? Like, are you going to spend time in his word? Are you going to share the gospel? You say, well, some of these things are hard. That's really the point. It's a process. And the more hard things we do, the easier they get, and the closer we draw and really learn to lean and depend on the Lord. So are you called? Yes. Are you called specifically? Maybe not. We may go the rest of our lives and never have a revelation like I had when I was a teenager, where it's like, specifically, this is it. Mm-hmm. Kevin and I could die 125. That's how old we're going to live. He's going to die a little bit ahead of me.
Not me.
We could live 100 years from now, and I could never have another specific revelation from the Lord. But I have enough. I know what the Bible says. I'm reaching my phone, but I know what the scriptures say. I know what God has called me to. I know what he's gifted me to do. And I'm telling you, that gives you freedom. So you are called. Pursue that calling. And watch as you do that, the road almost narrows. Yeah, I know this. I've tried this, and my group leader told me, like, I'm not gifted for that. I have been broken by this. Like, I am called here. I am gifted here. And like Kevin said, he knows his is not preaching primarily. He can do it, but it's harder for him. There's more work involved, and it's not, let's just be honest, it's not something you enjoy. Right? Like, and not to say that every gift is super enjoyable, but I do believe when you discover God's purpose and God's calling on your life, there's a real joy that you enjoy that. You love doing that. And man, that's what we want to help you discover in your Christian walk. So our encouragement is you are called. So,
Yeah, what's the excuse?
Yeah, there's no excuse. Anything you want to add, Kevin, before we close off?
No, man, just Philippians 2:13, for God is working in you, giving you the desire and power to do what pleases him. God's working in all of us. Like,
Stop fighting.
Yeah, don't fight it. Don't fight it. Go with it. Go through those open doors and see where God leads you. Because a lot of times we're getting to those doors and we're like, and we let it slam, and then we see it. Like, your lives just like crumble for 3 months. And then we get a phone call. Man, I'm sorry. I knew what
I should have done.
We react. It's like when we first find out we're going to be a father, and the overwhelming weight of that responsibility. But a lot of times we treat that the same way with God. Like, oh, but if I do that, people are going to watch me. Yes, people are going to watch you because they need to know what happened in your life.
Yeah.
And man, what better way for us to grow than to have individuals relying on us to know that they're going to be discipled by us. And so, for God is working in you. God is working in you. God is working in you.
That's good. All right, y'all. We will see you next week, and hope this has helped. We'll see you next week, same time, same place, different topic, different faces, because Kev's going to be on vacation next
Yeah,
week, right?
buddy.
Lake
See
week?
y'all later. Lake week.
Lake time.
Yep.
All right?
Family. Pray for us that we don't kill each other.
Yeah. Y'all have a great rest of your Wednesday. We'll see you next time.
See you guys.